Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden. I was just unboxing my heirloom rose order that just came in. This is Eden Climber, which is Heirloom Rose's top selling climbing rose. I picked it out because when I was there in Oregon in June, I witnessed it at the Portland Rose Society or Portland Rose Garden, and it was stunning. So heirloom roses ship leafless to make the plant look better when it arrives to you, because sometimes leaves can look a little rough in transit and sometimes they can sit in transit for a while. So this rose has been in transit for almost a week. It took a little longer to get to me because as you are probably aware, FedEx's delivery times are just outstanding these days. And it's already starting to put on some new growth there that's a little yellow because it didn't have sunlight, but it'll perk right up. We did finally get some rain earlier this week. It's been kind of misty, kind of overcast in the 70s this week, which has been perfect to allow the soil to rehydrate. We had weeks of 90s and high 80s temperatures with absolutely zero rain. I'm not kidding when I say zero rain. I think my Tempest weather station back here registered 0.06 inches since late August, and everything was looking rough because of it. This week I did just yesterday get in the last piece to do my trellising of these roses from Heirloom Roses. This is 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲. It's a climbing rose. These were just planted in spring. If you've been here, like, look how big some of these have gotten. I was going to save this rose trellising project until like late October, November. And then I quickly discovered that these were quickly outgrowing and I didn't want to have to be poking around with them when they get any bigger and have more thorns on them. The hurricane weather will be coming through this weekend, so I don't know how much I'll be able to get outside, but now that the evenings are nice, very low humidity, perfect 60s and 70 degrees, I can get out here and start trellising these up, which I will probably take you along on a video, at least for part of it, to show you how I'm doing it. I'm going to get at least one strand across before I start shooting video to make sure it's going to work as I intended. But today I wanted to take you around the garden because I've not shot any video in about 2 weeks. It was very hot last week and very dry, and I wasn't feeling the greatest. My allergies, you might be able to tell, have still been bothering me some. And I've come up with some design changes. I've also planted a lot of stuff this week. My shrub bay where I keep everything that's to be planted has very few things in it. There's a few trees, a couple shrubs, and a few tiny perennials that I need to get in the ground, and that I'll be focusing on over the next couple weeks too. So I'm sad to report that a lot of the shrubs I hope to be getting from Bailey's will probably not be arriving this fall. They were trying to ship some of those along with a garden center order, and I've been told there may not be any trucks coming to Ohio this fall. And so I'm sad I'm not going to be able to fill in more of the shrub border, but that gives me more time to think about placement and focus on some other things. I also didn't want to have to do as much planting like that in the spring. Things obviously do better if you can plant them now in the fall and they can root in, but I will have everything on drip irrigation, so it's not the end of the world. It's just not ideal, but what that will allow me to do is tackle other projects that have been pressing that aren't necessarily things I'll be showing on camera, like finishing the electrical stuff for the irrigation system that I had been started in spring that I wasn't able to finish up because it got too hot, organizing the barn, things like that. But let's turn the camera around and show you a few things along the bed in front of me that is right here that have changed since the last video. So you know I'm doing my Hydrangea macrophylla trials. Well, I decided to plant some Hydrangea macrophylla here. So this is the north side of the house. This will also receive a lot more sun than the others might get, but I needed a place to put these that would be at least somewhat protected, because they'll be protected most of the day this way. They'll get a little bit of sun until the sun creeps behind the barn. And so we got a few hydrangeas here to show you. If you remember, there was a magnolia here that I had planted that was really tiny, and it completely lost all of its leaves about a month and a half ago. I showed you that in a video, not sure what happened to it, but last week when I was looking at that magnolia, I noticed that the stem of it near the bottom, it wasn't necessarily where there was a graft or anything, but there was swelling and cracking. So the trunk had broke somehow, don't know why, and then it caused death to the rest of the tree. So I went ahead and pulled it up. And in its location, I placed this hydrangea right here, which is called Rock and Roll. Now, if you watch my Hydrangea macrophylla trial video, you may remember me talking about Michael Durr. Michael Durr is one of the founders of the original endless summer hydrangea variety and breeders of a lot of hydrangeas. He is based now, I think, in Georgia, but he has started breeding some hydrangeas again, and this is one from his program called Rock and Roll. And it's supposed to be, you can see it's already got really beautiful fall color on it right now, but it's supposed to be a really prolific rebloomer. You can see it's got a new bud coming on here, new bloom, and it's looking really nice. So I stuck that there in its place. I'm going to put a tree here that I'll show you in a minute to kind of replace that magnolia. It'll be a smaller dogwood. We'll discuss it in a minute. This is another hydrangea that I picked out earlier this year that I hadn't gotten in the ground. This one's called Starfield. Really pretty. It is highly disease prone though. You can see how much disease it has on it right now, but it's been getting a deluge of overhead water since it's been sitting on the shrub bay on the side of the barn. So hopefully, I'm hoping this will look a little better. And this red bud here had grown so much this year that I thought it would cast a good amount of shade here to allow that to thrive a little better. And then at the end down here, I planted one called Let's Dance Rave. This is one from the Proven Winners collection and is a parent to several of the ones that I showed you in my hydrangea trial video. Now it's been discontinued because apparently its offspring are better rebloomers than it is, but I did pick it up locally at 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 and I'm going to give it a trial here in this corner. So it'll get a good amount of sun, be protected a little bit by this Japanese maple that's here. But it is putting on new blooms close to the end of fall here. I'm not super impressed with its performance because it's likely hanging around since last year, and considering it was probably protected in the garden center setting, to have only put on like 1 and now 2 to 3 blooms so far is not like super exciting to me. But we're going to keep an eye on it and see how it does next year, because overwintering is the most important thing I'm trialing in those trials. As we head to the front, because that's where I want to show you where there's going to be some design changes happening, I want to show you these flowerful hydrangeas again and just show you how many flowers and buds it's put on since being planted. So I went through a week and a half ago maybe and cut all the blooms. I just kind of let them drop. You can see them around the plants there. All of them except this one right here, which looks a little chlorotic, so I need to give it some iron, are putting on a ton of buds in fall, which is kind of like unheard of for a arborescens hydrangea, which is really exciting. So I think this is going to be a really good performer, and it seems to be liking its placement so far with the exception of that one, but I will treat it with some chelated iron and we'll get that resolved. So up here I've come through and started pulling out annuals. I've left the ones that have looked the best because I have such a hard time pulling them out, even though we have maybe 3 to 4 weeks until our first frost and they're all going to be toast anyway. A lot of places where I have annuals this year, I have extra drip irrigation, so they're going to be places for annuals pretty much always and in perpetuity into the future. So I'm going to keep annuals right there, and I've already placed my annual order for next year of some exciting things. But I did pull out some annuals that were intended to be there to put perennials or shrubs as placeholders, and I was testing them there for color. So here I had Snow Princess Alyssum that was looking absolutely awful. I pulled it up and planted some of those gem box ilex here instead, so those will be nice evergreen. I'm focusing on adding lots of evergreens this fall to boost some of the winter interest in this area. Place my Pugster butterfly bush right here, which will be a beautiful blue purpley color around all the yellow. This is a purple fountain grass, and it will obviously not be a perennial, but I think next year I'm going to plant a Little Devil 9 bark to replace that dark color. As we come around here, I planted some more evergreens. This is the strong box down here at the bottom to be an anchor evergreen for the future pathway that'll go through this area. Planted another strong box here. I will probably not do more annuals right here next year. This will probably be a lot of other perennials or smaller shrubs, and so when those come out they'll be replaced as such. And I didn't plant too many more shrubs in here, I don't think. I was really on a planting spree this week because it's just been so nice outside in the evenings. I did plant my crepe myrtle under here. This is the one that it's in there. It's hiding under this purple fountain grass. I didn't have the heart to remove it quite yet, but it will replace this dark foliage texture here. That is called the Center Stage series, and that one is Center Stage Coral, and so there'll be a coral colored bloom there. There's also a lot of annuals up here, and this is not all, while it is all annuals this year, it is not going to be all annuals next year. I actually did not choose to reorder these. Even though they're really beautiful right now, their performance was kind of really lagging behind the other super or sun patients I had. So I'm probably going to try and find a foundational nice shrub to put up here and then fill around it with annuals, or do some more perennial planting and leave some of the annuals more along the sidewalks so they can be seen by guests. Now, something I've struggled with this bed for this entire season is balance and weight. I planted a lot of things in here that are large already, and then I planted some things last fall that were smaller and really needed to grow in, but I've really struggled with how it's looked kind of off balance. There's a lot of weight on this side of the bed back here with the bigger shrubs and bigger trees and this evergreen and those trees on the back end. There's not a whole lot of weight this way, and then there's very empty in the center. And so what I'm doing, and what I decided actually just today, is I'm going to come out here this weekend outside of any rain that we're having and replace 2 trees. They're both going to be moving to the shrub border or that north flower bed next to the hydrangea I just showed you. So this is a stellar pink dogwood. It's variegated, and I planted it here last year and it struggled. I think it gets too much sun here, so I'm going to move that one over where I just showed you next to the fence and the rock and roll hydrangea. In its place, I'm going to plant this scarlet fire dogwood. So this is a dogwood that will immediately bring more impact to this area because it's much larger. It's already the age where it's blooming, and it'll be, I think, a perfect pink spring bloom there and kind of fill out this space. So what I was struggling designing in this big empty space where I have the cleomes this year was this space in the future was going to be more shade. Now this dogwood still has a lot of growing to do, but now it'll make me feel a little bit better about what I'm planting around here, because I can fill in with some more perennials or some smaller shrubs. I was kind of struggling with planting something that got bigger to fill space, which would eventually have to be moved or taken out when this tiny stellar pink dogwood grew up. Now I won't have to worry about that as much, and there'll be more weight here in the center of this bed. That'll look much nicer. While we're here, look how good these Let's Dance Can Do hydrangeas. They took a long time to get started, but September they have really kicked it into high gear after giving them some chelated iron. So I'm really impressed with their bloom now. I'm hoping that they do better next spring. They had a rough start because when I planted everything in this bed, everything I planted last fall has struggled quite a bit because we had a drought last year too. This of course was not a flower bed originally when I planted things in it, and the soil was so hard, so compacted, I think they just were not able to really kind of get settled in that first winter, and even now they're still kind of feeling those effects of that first winter and fall planting. So also I have a Venus dogwood here, which has also gotten toasted this season. And I planted it here so I could have some nice white blooms through those windows there that I could look out of. But I've decided, since this is the Southerner's Northern Garden and I wanted a magnolia on my property, I showed you this, I bought it about a month ago. I was originally going to place it way out there in the yard, and then I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted it closer, more of a foundational element to this flower bed. It'll be nice because it's evergreen. It will bloom white just like the Venus dogwood in the spring. And this is a smaller magnolia for those not familiar with it. It's called Bracken's Brown Beauty. So it is a hardy magnolia up here down to zone 6, and it keeps or has more brown on the back of its leaves than the other hardy magnolia, Edith Bogue, in our area. So I've placed them here, and hopefully I will be able to come out tomorrow and plant them, and I'll be putting, of course, the Venus dogwood in the shrub border now, in a further back where it'll get a little more protection from afternoon sun and a little more shade, hopefully. But I'm really liking the weight. I literally just put these here before I started shooting this video, and I think it'll be much nicer. Now, Bracken's Brown Beauty Magnolia will drop some leaves. That's just part of having a big southern magnolia. And those leaves, of course, some people don't like them because they kind of are difficult. They don't break down super easily. I'm aware of that, and that's something I'm willing to deal with because I have a pretty high maintenance garden anyway, and that's something I'll just stay on pulling out as they drop. When I planted one at the last house, it did drop quite a bit of leaves its first season. But that's not a huge deal when they're that small. These tend to also stay a little more columnar, and I think it'll just be a stunning accent here all throughout the garden as we walk around. That did not have the weight there previously with that dogwood. So, as part of that rearrange and design, let's talk a little bit about the trees in this bed. We'll go over them again so you'll have an idea of what's planted here. This is a Rising Sun redbud. It has been spectacular this fall. Its leaves have gotten bigger, and it's putting on that yellow and orange new growth, which it's known for. It is a smaller redbud, supposed to stay a little smaller, but it does grow really quickly, and I have heard of people having to keep them pretty pruned and maintained so they don't get too big and just kind of topple over, because a lot of these specialty redbuds grow faster than their trunk can accommodate and get a little top heavy. This is Royal Star Magnolia, which I got from the tree sale, the Brown Nursery tree auction last year for $70 whole. I'm really proud of that purchase. It did have scale. I treated it for scale in the spring. It seems to have recovered. I treated it for scale in the fall and the spring, and it seems to have recovered pretty well. And I'm hoping, I did get blooms in the spring on it, and I'm hoping to get lots more blooms this coming spring. This is a kindred spirit oak. It is a very upright oak, only gets about 4 foot wide and 20 to 30 foot tall. So just very narrow, maybe 5 to 6 foot wide. But it's the skinniest oak on the market, I believe. Its cousin over there behind this evergreen, this tall one, is called Skinny Jeans, and it is a slightly larger, up to 9 to 10 foot wide, I believe. So we have the Bracken's Brown Beauty Magnolia now. This is a juniper called Star Power. We'll have the Scarlet Fire Dogwood, and then the Crimson Century Maple, and the Weeping Norway Spruce. So I think this gives me a whole lot more symmetry. You can just look this way and see how much more balanced it looks with the extra trees in there. And this will give me in the future, there's a lot of sun things in this bed, but many years in the future, it will provide some nice shade to start some beautiful shade garden plantings under, which I absolutely have longed for the longest time, because I've never had much option to garden in shade. So lots of beautiful things in here coming along, and I'm excited about where this bed is going now that it'll be a little more symmetrical to my taste. All right, I know that was a lot, but I probably will not be able to shoot any videos this weekend because it's going to rain so much. If I am, I'll get another one in, but I'm not hopeful that I will, depending on how much rain we're going to get dropped on us. But I want to show you a few other things that I got planted this week in the ground while I'm here. Weeds have gone wild because it has been so hot, and I hadn't been out here on top of them, but not terrible. Just a few things here at the front of the border where the mulch is a little thinner. So I planted the Pugster Pinker butterfly bush right here in front of this Starway to Heaven Styrex. And then I planted a hydrangea over here that is very exciting. So this is Hydrangea involucrata. It is a very interesting hydrangea that you will almost never find unless you buy it online, and it's even very hard to find online. So this is a species variety that has fuzzy leaves, which is perfect for deer resistance. It is pretty deer resistant as far as hydrangeas go. It has buds that look like peonies before the bloom burst, which is stunning in fall when it starts blooming. And then it has these lace cap blooms, which are always purple or blue. They do not react to the pH of the soil or the presence of aluminum, and so you'll always get blue hydrangea flowers. Now the thing about it is it doesn't bloom until this time of year. So late August, early September, which if you're looking for flower power throughout the season, this is not the plant for you. But if you're looking for something fresh and a hydrangea that's blooming when nothing else and everything else is pretty much wrapped up and turning brown, this is a great option. I think it's just incredible that I'll show you a picture on the screen that the buds look like peonies before they open. And then it unfurls from this tight ball into this gorgeous lace cap hydrangea. And it's that blue color, which is almost impossible for us to get up here in our high alkaline soil. So really exciting find. If you can find it, grab it. There's not many places that offer it, and there's certain varieties that are more available than others potentially. This is the one that's closest to the species variety, which is just Hydrangea involucrata, involucrata. So grab you one if you can find it. All right, back to planting. Planted the Rose of Sharon called Paraplu Pink Ink right here. This is the Vitex called Rock Steady. No, that was a lie. That was straight up lie. This is 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 which if you watched the last video, I had a really hard time pronouncing. So it will bloom in spring relative to the hydrangea family. This is the azalea, the coral azalea. And then I planted a few things down here, getting the grass cut finally. I had turned off the robot for a few weeks because it was so dry and crispy. I didn't want it damaging the grass anymore, so it's got to catch up. This is the Rock Steady Vitex. Now this thing can get up to 12 foot tall and wide in a warmer climate. I am counting on it staying at its smallest size up here, which is estimated to be 4 foot tall and wide. We will see. I may have to move this. This may have been an improper placement, but I don't know because I haven't seen it, how big it will get here. So we're counting on it staying smaller for right now anyway. One thing I wanted to point out is this viburnum, brandywine, is blooming here in the fall, which is weird, probably just because it was planted in the spring and this is its first real growing season from a container. But I just found it fascinating that it was putting on blooms this late when I thought it was a spring bloomer and put on berries, but we'll see how that turns out. And then I put the Happy Face Potentilla Orange right here, which is a deer-proof, in the deer-proof line of Proven Winners plants in front of this 9 bark. So hopefully if there are any deer back here munching around, they won't like the Potentilla and so they'll avoid the 9 bark. I don't know how helpful that will be, but it was my thought process, and I think it'll look cute here with the orange blooms. You can see it's put on a little bit of them. It'll put on much more next year. It's a light orange. It's not a super bright orange there, but I thought that would also look nice with the 9 bark foliage. Did get the pool closed because it's entirely too cold to swim in it, and I'm letting my Crescent Garden containers die down so I can pull out the soil and those grasses. I know it's going to be quite a job and task to pull those out unless they shrink up a little bit because grass roots and sweet potato vine roots are very prolific. By the way, these 9 barks here, this is from best to what I can tell Fireside. They were the ones that were here when I moved in that I transplanted to over here. I'm considering, you typically don't prune on 9 bark because the arching stems are really nice, but they had such a hard life before I moved into this house. I'm considering like coppice pruning them to the ground and letting them come up fresh in spring because there's a lot of growth in here that is just old, woody, dead, and I think selectively pruning it's not going to be that helpful. So if I can cut it down to the ground before it starts pushing growth in spring, I think that would be the best thing for these. So stick around as I do that. I've got 2 of them. One of them looks a little better. This is the one that looks the worst, but I think I'm going to do it to both of them to try and get a rejuvenation prune on them. So if you have cut 9 barks down to the ground and you're watching this video, let me know how that went, because I'm probably going to do it anyway because they look kind of rough. All right, I'm going to end right here under the hydrangea trial bed. I am getting, very kindly, Walter's Gardens is sending me out a buttload of perennials to plant and fill in spaces. So I'm going to be planting those things here. I don't think they ship until the week of October 7th, and so it'll be a couple more weeks, but perfect timing as we head into fall. I want to give you an update on the hydrangea trial bed. That will be a separate video because this one's getting pretty long. Really impressed with the rebloom on some of them not so much. I'm giving graces this year because it's the first year they were planted. Next year will be a really good test because these got in early enough that they should be pretty much fully acclimated to a good extent of the growing season. So I planted these in July, so they had 3, almost 4 full months, at least 3 full months to root in before our first frost in winter. Some of them have put on no more blooms, so we'll see how that shakes out next year. But right now they're not winning the test. The one that has produced the most blooms has been Popstar by Endless Summer. But probably really close second, if not immediately behind that, has been Let's Dance Lovable. And I've told you, I think that's going to be a really good one for up here. So Popstar winning right now. Next year we'll have an even slate and see how those go. Thank y'all for joining me. And remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.